Ladies and gentlemen, our referee has called a stop to this contest, declaring the winner by knockout and new MMA show! Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another exciting round of and new MMA show. I am your host, Michael Hansen, and I do all kinds of charismatic things with microphones because I am a ring announcer and MMA cage announcer, and I'm joined this week, as I always am, by my two buddies who bring MMA punditry to new heights. Joining us first, on the left side of your screens, all the way from New York, Mark Priol. Say hi, buddy.
What's up, boys? How we doing? Not too much to report on my end this week other than this new sexy microphone that I got here. Still figuring out exactly where I want to position it. I feel like it's kind of all up on me, but either way, it's an improvement on the last mic, so I'm feeling very professional over here.
Very nice, very nice. And joining us on the right sides of your screens, all the way from the Sunshine State of Florida, Omar, the Nicaraguan Nightmare, Artola. What's going on, my friend?
Just enjoying another week now at this point. No COVID. Post-COVID.
Hey!
We're out of the woods with that nonsense. All good to go. Wife actually got it after I got it. So that was garbage.
My man put COVID in a twister.
Yeah. Well, my wife, luckily enough, took an extra day, but she didn't get as sick as I did the first day. I had a fever in the whole nine. She never got a fever. She just had a lot of those body aches for a couple days.
Okay. How's she doing now, though?
She's good. She's fully recovered at this point now.
Okay.
So we're good to go. So good to be back.
Glad to hear it.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. My son has finally got over his long stint of colds and illnesses at daycare, and now is loving daycare.
Oh, nice.
Which is all good. Yeah,
That's
it's great. Awesome. And he comes home exhausted, and he just passes out for
Dude, that's the best.
11 hours.
Yep.
Tonight I'm joined by my friend Elijah, and I realize as I sip this, I haven't had whiskey in weeks and weeks, and it's so good.
Is that noteworthy that you've gone like a few weeks with that whiskey?
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I do the podcast with some wine. Sometimes I have a little whiskey, but it's been a while with whiskey. So welcome back.
I'm on 2 weeks in a row liquorless here. So next week I'm going to have to rectify that situation.
Yeah. Well, guys, this week we have a fun show. We're going to start, as we always do, with On the Marquee. We're going to discuss some of the fights from this past weekend's Bellator 273 card. Then we're going to talk about our first fan question. So exciting. We're going to dive inside the MMA sphere. And then we're going to look ahead to this weekend's UFC Fight Night, Hermansson versus Strickland. And then we're going to end, as we always do, with some trivia. So, guys, before we get into any of that, anybody who's watching and or listening, thank you so much for tuning in, for checking us out. If you're watching this on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe if you haven't already. Hit the bell icon. If you don't know, hit the bell icon so that you get notified when a new episode is published to YouTube. And if you want audio only, we got you. Listen to us on your commute, when you're folding your laundry, when you're doing your dishes. Find us wherever you get your podcasts. And we're on social media at @&new_MMA show in all the places. Send us your fan questions on any of our posts, and we might address them on the show like we're doing this week. So, gentlemen, let's get into it. This week, the name on the marquee has got to be Ryan Bader, who last weekend at Bellator 273 at the Footprint Center in Phoenix, Arizona, defeated Valentin Moldavsky by unanimous decision. Mark, let me throw it up to you first. What's your reaction, Ryan Bader defending his Bellator heavyweight title?
My reaction is that Omar must be disgusted by this marquee. Hey, he deserves it, man. I can't tell you how much I loved this fight. Like, I know it wasn't necessarily a barn burner in the typical sense, but man, I was captivated by this fight the whole way. Like, this felt like two dudes made out of granite, just throwing themselves at each other. Like, there were so many moments that were stalemated or that involve fights for position, where in those moments, like neither guy could move the other, even though it was so obvious that they were giving everything they had. So just off of that, I felt like it was so interesting to watch, like who could break who would get a little tired first, who would miss a step. Like it was just such a close matchup in every way. But like talk about leaving it all out there. Both of those guys gave every ounce of energy they had by the time that fight was done. Plus, I thought the momentum swings were fantastic. Like round one, you get Ryan Bader almost winning off another one of his hot starts in the striking, where he just, it's like he almost catches dudes before they're ready, or like they don't realize how fast he is until he's on them. It tends to happen a lot in Ryan Bader fights. But he rocked Moldavsky bad, swarmed him, couldn't get him out of there, but he ends up winning round one and looking pretty good. Then in rounds 2 and 3, Moldavsky just entirely swings the fight back in his favor, like a ton of control and takedowns. By the end of round 3, he's drowning Ryan Bader, like he's suffocating him. It seems like a night that's not going to go Bader's way. It seems like we're getting the answer of who's the superior wrestler, with the answer being Moldavsky. And then you get round 4, and Ryan Bader freaking digs deep and just claws back and puts it on Moldavsky with wrestling on his own. He's relentless, and suddenly we have an even fight going into round 5, and like a dead even fight. It even felt like, if you were judging it as a whole, it was like dead even entering round 5. And both men are so drained, but they also both have great cardio at the same time. They come out. It's not the most incredible round 5 ever, but it's another super close round 5, and concludes a fight that honestly feels like dead even the whole way. Like if either guy won, I would have been like, hey, that's how it went. They both gave it their all. The scoring really came down to those like Travis Brown type elbows that Bader was giving in the clinch, and the little strikes that he was throwing in there. And it's like, if you score them significantly, it was Bader's round and his fight. If you don't score them significantly, it was Moldavsky's round and fight. So it really came down to that. I was torn myself. All 3 judges obviously saw it for Bader. I don't know if there was any home cooking there or not. It was in Arizona. But, I mean, what can you say? The dude just had an awesome display of will and guttiness to come out on top, because that was a hard-ass fight, and he deserves props for it.
Omar, let me bring you in here. Care to share your take on Bader getting it done, earning a 48-47 on all 3 judges' scorecards?
So it was a good performance. First round, probably, definitely had me with an oh shit moment when Ryan Bader cracked him with a right hand that just wobbled him for a minute. I think the things that get me frustrated about Ryan Bader is still to this day, the man doesn't know how to be patient. He still rushes in. And I think the reason is it works for him a lot of the time. But there was that little moment where that right hand really could have sealed the deal. But you saw how quick Moldavsky got back in the groove and was able to shoot for a takedown underneath a hook that Ryan Bader tried to throw in there afterwards. Just as much as Ryan Bader's striking, I guess, has improved from the past, it's still not my favorite. And I still think his wrestling is his bread and butter. With all that said, that fight was pretty intense. There was a lot of back and forth. The first round, like I said, was definitely for Bader. At least in my opinion, that round was still pretty close. 2 and 3 were very dominant as far as I was concerned from Moldavsky. 4, I was actually surprised at how quickly it turned around in 4 for Bader. And I think it was one of those moments we've talked about it now a few times about champions being able to adjust and kind of, take those momentum shifts back. And I think that was a really good moment for Bader to kind of do that and prove that he has that kind of mettle. 5th round was probably just as close as the first round, if we're being honest. I personally had it for Moldavsky.
Ooh. Personally.
But again, just like when the decision was read, I wasn't like, they robbed Moldavsky. Like, that's no. It was a close fight. The first round could have gone to Bader, could have gone to Moldavsky. By the end of that first round, it could have gone to Moldavsky. There's arguments to be made. That 5th round was also kind of a toss-up in the air. The only ones I thought that were clear-cut one way or the other were 2, 3, and 4. But 1 and 5 I thought were pretty tossed up. But either way, solid fight, very grindy fight. But usually with two guys that are good at wrestling, you rarely see them actually wrestle.
Yeah.
And it was interesting to actually see them kind of put their elite skills to display.
Mark, put on the matchmaker hat. What's next for the heavyweight title? Bader is defending it against who, in your opinion?
Just real quick, as we were both breaking down the rounds, I got curious and I pulled up MMA decisions to see how the world scored them. First round, 97% gave it to Bader. Second round, 100% Moldavsky. Third round, 98% Moldavsky. Fourth round, 97% Bader. So literally for the world, 2-2.
All right, well.
Fifth round, 35% Bader, 65% Moldavsky.
Yeah. So I mean, it seems like a lot of people had Moldavsky winning. Again, I don't think by any stretch of the imagination was it a robbery.
Agree. 65-35 is, it tells you people saw it differently. That's not a robbery by any means.
What's that website?
MMA decisions.
Okay. Is there a, by any chance, just curious, is there an option for people to choose like undecided or like don't know?
No.
They have to pick one?
I mean, you can enter it as a draw round, which people do.
Oh, okay.
Like people do it a lot more than judges do it. I notice it, but yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So you asked me about Bader next. So yeah, so we know what Bader's doing next. He, surprisingly to me, I really thought if Bader won this, they were going to go with Fedor. Fedor has now mentioned multiple times how much he would love to have that rematch against Bader. It would have been for the world title. I thought they'll do it in Russia. It's perfect. It's Fedor's retirement fight, blah, 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 blah. And they had other plans. They have booked him against Czech Congo. Have the date here, May 6th in Paris. It's a rematch of their fight from September of 2019 that ended in a no contest because of an eye poke where Bader poked Congo. There was even some controversy over it because on some replays it didn't really look like it went in his eye. Bader said that after. Congo was like, of course it went in my eye. Why the fuck would I lie? So on and so on. So they had their little bit of controversy there. Coker did make it sound like they haven't moved away from the Fedor idea. Like he was kind of like, look, we felt like there was unfinished business with Bader and Congo. We had to wait while Bader was like at light heavyweight, but now that he's back, we want to do that. But if Bader wins, we still may go like him and Fedor. I don't love waiting so long for Fedor because he's just getting older. But yeah, that's what we're gonna have to see first, which is a good heavyweight fight. And Congo's a huge dude compared to Moldavsky, so we'll see how the size factors in there for Bader. Granted, the first time they fought, it looked like Bader was handling him, but now he's got the hometown fight in Paris, so we'll see how it goes.
Omar, sending it over to you. Who do you see next for Moldavsky in the Bellator heavyweight roster?
I mean, is there a reason why he wouldn't fight Fedor at this point? Just not big enough? Not important enough?
Fedor trains him.
Okay.
What about
thank you for that.
Kharitonov? Rather.
Fedor's like two protege guys are Nemkov at light heavyweight, obviously, and Moldavsky at heavyweight. Yeah, Kharitonov is someone I thought of. I don't know if he is like still with Bellator because obviously he just fought this weekend in Eagle FC.
Yeah, I don't think
and
he
got
is.
a dub.
Yeah.
So, but Bellator does that sometimes. Like you'll see like a guy will fight elsewhere and then 3 months later he'll fight in Bellator again. So like, I don't really know how that works.
He's not in their rankings.
Yeah, dude, they have so many people that like are not in their rankings, even though they fight. Bellator's weird. Their contract situations must be like very unique.
Yeah.
I
But,
mean, if I was looking based on the rankings, I would say probably Linton Vassell would be the next person for Moldavsky, or Tim Johnson, one or the other. Which both actually are pretty goddamn good fights. So.
Yeah, so he's got wins over both of those guys already. The Vassell one was close, so or Vassell, I should say. So you could do that one again. The one that popped into my head just because of exactly that, he beat Tim Johnson already. He beat Linton Vassell already. Obviously, he can't fight Fedor. Congo and Bader are fighting each other. It's like Bellator's heavyweight division is not so top heavy, so there's not a lot there. So I was wondering, I don't know what the relationship is between Vitaly Minakov and Team Fedor outside of like the obvious Russian connection. So maybe they're boys and like I have no idea and they wouldn't do that. But if they would do that, even though Minakov kind of looked weird in his last fight, there's not a ton of options in Bellator. So at least I feel like that would be like a fun one that they could do in the meantime while the rest of it kind of plays out around Moldavsky. Because you got to think Moldavsky with a win might get another shot right away after how close that fight was.
All right. Cool. Shall we move on?
Surely.
Let's do it.
Okay, the rest, not the rest, but a few of these fights from this Bellator card 273. Let us throw into a quick little lightning round. Benson Henderson split decision over Islam Mamedov. Omar, go first.
Benson Henderson being Benson Henderson. There's nothing more you can really say about that fight. He did just enough to squeak out another split decision. I will say he was a lot more aggressive in the submission game this time around.
Yeah.
Mark Bendo getting it done by split decision over Islam Mamedov. Go.
Yeah, I kind of think Mamedov edged that fight out, in my opinion. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. Benson looked solid, honestly, and he won round 1. But round 2 was a clear Mamedov round. And I really think he edged out round 3 late for a little bit. I was like, oh, Benson's really like, because I knew I didn't watch it live. I watched it after. So I saw he won the split and I was like, I wonder. So like for most of round 3, I was like, wow, maybe he really does this. And then like the last like 2 minutes of round 3 really did not go well. And I was like, I don't think he did that. But hey, happy to see Benson get a win for the first time in a while.
Henry Corrales UD over Aiden Lee. Mark, take it first.
Yeah, Lee is still more raw than me and Vegas realized. He, despite the obvious size advantage, he just couldn't really figure out how to use his range against like a higher level of competition that Corrales was. Corrales was kind of just like outthinking him, it seemed. Who knows what would have happened in the third? Lee did come out hot, but that eye poke, unfortunately, was really bad and ended things. It kind of looked like Corrales' like nail almost slid across the eye, which is never good. So, yeah, for a minute, I thought he was milking it at first. And then when I was like seeing it more and seeing him more, I was like, oh, fuck, this is bad. So, yeah, unfortunately, he just couldn't clear the eye, and that was that. So, decision for Corrales.
Omar, your lightning take, Corrales unanimous decision over Lee.
So I didn't know about that part of the eye business because I did think he was milking the shit out of it because he was getting pieced up for 2.5 rounds, I guess, really up until that point. The power, I think, really took him by surprise because he was shelling up for a lot of that fight, even when Corrales wasn't throwing. So I don't think he liked getting hit, and I think it worked to his disadvantage trying to just avoid shots and not really having a game of his own at that point. But yeah, I mean, no one ever likes to see a fight end that way. It always feels unfinished. So I'm sure they'll have to run that back at some point, even though Corrales was winning that fight.
Omar,
Yeah,
staying with
really better guy.
Yeah.
Okay, Omar, staying with you. Sabah Hamasi, round 1 submission over Jaleel Willis. What'd you take?
I mean, Hamasi's an animal. I mean, listen, he ran over that kid. I mean, if you want to talk about hot starts, that's as hot as they get. There was no time wasted. He went in, took the kid down, and just what did he choke him out?
Yeah.
Took his back,
Arm
right?
triangle.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. He didn't even. Matter of fact, that's right. He didn't even pass the side control.
No, he didn't. Yeah.
He was in half guard when he choked this kid out with an arm triangle, which is more difficult than it sounds. That's really a proper one is side control, and you keep kind of twisting counterclockwise and whatever else. He had enough pressure and enough strength in his arms that he was just biting down basically until he tapped. It's wild.
Mark, your take, Hamasi subbing Willis.
Yeah, that's kind of exactly what my take was going to be. Like, Sabah just whooped him, man. Like, that transition from the back into the arm triangle and tapping him from half guard was almost more just about, like, power and strength than it was about technique. So, I mean, yeah, it was just a beastly performance for Hamasi.
And Mark, staying with you, the last one for our lightning round. Enrique Barzola, round 3, TKO of Darian Caldwell.
Yeah, I'm a little frustrated because I can't find this full fight anywhere. For some reason, I guess Bellator only like gives you the replays, at least on Showtime, of the main card and not of the prelims. So I haven't been able to find it. From what I can tell, it looks like it was like very clearly 1-1 going into the third. Caldwell took the first, Barzola took the second. And I've seen the clip of the stoppage, which looked kind of like a weak stoppage to me. So for those that don't know, Barzola got a third-round TKO over Caldwell. I didn't love the stoppage from what I saw. Granted, I don't want to have like too strong of a take on it because I didn't see the whole fight. So I don't know. Unfortunately, I can't watch it. But either way, huge debut in Bellator for Barzola.
Omar, taking home your lightning take of Barzola, round 3, TKO over Caldwell.
Yeah, kind of the same. Unfortunately, with the same sentiments as Mark. I will say though that Barzola definitely has a name on his register at this point because Darren Caldwell, whether we saw it or not, Caldwell is not a name that's easy to beat. So it's a good one to have on his hat.
Sounds good. Sounds good. And that concludes this week's lightning round. All right, boys. Now we're going to jump into something a little different from our usual programming. Guys, we are 27. This is our 28th episode that we are recording right now, and we got our first fan question. We have gotten a smattering of comments on our YouTube channel from episode to episode, but this is our first real fan question that we got. And, if you had said, where would you think your first fan question would come from? I'd be like, probably like New York. All three of us have roots in New York, or Mark still is in New York. Guys, this first fan question came from a guy in Turkey. So that's pretty cool,
that's pretty
man.
Dope.
Yeah,
pretty
man,
cool.
I love it.
Bear with me, guys. I want to do this. It's due respect. I'm going to read this question real quick. My man, he went deep on Brock Lesnar. So here we go. Brock Lesnar fan question from Uj in Turkey. Hello, sir. I have a hypothetical question. If Brock Lesnar appeared at that time between 1997 and 2002, imagine him starting his MMA career and learning the striking discipline. How good could he have been against names like Mark Kerr, Mark Coleman, Mirko Krokop, Big Nog, and Fedor? Because he won the championship match in his 4th professional match. In his 5th professional game, he managed to keep top position against submission artist Frank Mir on the mat without a hitch. It neutralized Mir's BJJ submission and Hunt's striking game, also referring to his fight against Mark Hunt at UFC 200. He had 2 successful title defenses before Stipe Miocic, only 2nd fighter in UFC history to win title on his 4th pro fight after Randy Couture. Only man in UFC history to earn consecutive wins over 3 reigning UFC champions, Randy Couture, Frank Mir, and Shane Carwin. Man, my man did his research.
Jesus Christ, he did his work.
And some fighters learning MMA at elite MMA camps in their 20s, such as Fedor, Overeem, JDS, Cain Velasquez. Some of them competed in amateur MMA matches before their biggest MMA organization. Returning to my question, I would like to ask again, if Lesnar had the same opportunity, elite camps, coaches, would he beat the best fighters like Big Nog, Krokop, Fedor, Verdum, Overeem, JDS, Stipe, Cain Velasquez, or would he be a potential top 5 heavyweight all time? There is a top athlete, I think he means he is a top athlete who can do incredible things in his short career against top competition level, and I'm especially curious about your opinion. Some say he would have been a GOAT. Some say he would have been top 5 heavyweight. What do you think, sir? Especially pre-USADA era. and then he ends by saying, first of all, sorry for the long message, sir. Ooge,
my man.
Ooze.
It's a quality question, man. It's a quality
Give it up
question.
for Ooze. Give it up for Ooze. So, guys, what's your take? What's your reaction to Ooze's question?
I gotta say really quick, and Marcus, I know you look like you want to say something, but I gotta say real quick.
No, because I already answered it on the thing. But yeah, go ahead.
I listen because this is my first time really listening to the question. I read it on there a little bit, but I hadn't really thought about it too much. But listening to it and mulling it over as I'm listening to you ask, it makes me wonder if there would have been as much of an emphasis on his striking back then as there was when he eventually got to the UFC. Because we're talking 1997 to early 2000s, guys were still very one-dimensional stylistically, right? So, like, if you were a heavy wrestler, chances are that's what you were punching, right? Like, you had your basics down, but you weren't trying to get crazy, right? We never saw, like Ken Shamrock throw a goddamn spinning back kick, right? Ken Shamrock did what Ken Shamrock did. And I feel like Brock Lesnar probably would have still gone in that same direction using his elite wrestling and all the juice that GNC would have provided for him to just be stronger, like stupidly stronger than everybody else. And I just don't know if the technique of the boxing or even kickboxing would have really come into play during those earlier eras. I think he would have been able to dominate just off of the elite wrestling and basics alone.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Yeah, so Uj, I know I already answered you on Instagram, but since that time, I've kind of thought about this question more and tried to think about like the timeline and all that. So the question mentioned him fighting in the era of like 97 and 2002. Brock graduated college in the year 2000, which is when he won the NCAA heavyweight wrestling championship. So having him in MMA that early would not really be super realistic. But if you're asking me what Brock does against those guys like a Mark Coleman or a Mark Kerr, who are kind of in that era in a hypothetical, I think the Brock that we already know beats both of those guys. I think that he's just as good as they are at what they do while being infinitely, and I mean infinitely, more athletic. That guy is one of the most athletic people I've ever seen in my life. Then the question goes on to mention guys like Fedor and Big Nog and Krokop, whose primes did come like a little bit after Coleman and Kerr's primes. They were more like early 2000s. But even still, I don't know if Brock would have realistically been ready for guys like that, like only a couple years out of college, even if he had delved right into MMA. So I don't know about actually like having him in that timeline, but in terms of like the overall question, it's interesting because what Brock did, when he graduated in 2000, from then until 2007, he was a professional wrestler. He was in OVW for a couple years. Then he was in WWE. Then he was in some Japanese promotions. And it wasn't until 2007 that he truly started training MMA in earnest. Like, of course, he already had an immense wrestling background.
A real wrestling background. Like,
right,
credential.
NCAA champion.
Yeah.
But he didn't start the rest of it until he was 29 years old, which is pretty old to be hopping into MMA. Like he was already 30 when he made his UFC debut against Frank Mir. So you do wonder if he even, right after college or a couple years, whatever, went right into MMA instead of professional wrestling. That would be like 6 or 7 or 8 years extra of honing that craft, of improving his striking, of improving his feel and his comfort in a fight, which was always kind of like an issue for him. He didn't love getting punched in the face. He didn't always have the greatest movement to like avoid getting punched in the face, standing, I'm talking about. So if he had been in it for that long and been able to enhance that comfort and have a little more striking of his own, because he did have power. Like I can remember him when he was like, when he hit Heath Herring, like Heath Herring flew across the goddamn cage.
Launched him.
Yeah. So if he had done that, then yeah, I absolutely do think it's likely that Brock is a top 5 heavyweight of all time and very possibly the best heavyweight of all time, just because of how good his wrestling was. Like the size was immense. The speed and athleticism for that size was ridiculous. The wrestling was elite. Yeah. And like I said, if he had that comfort and a little more danger as a striker, then yeah, I think it's possible he could have been the best heavyweight ever. So it's interesting. The Brock we do know, I think, deserves recognition as like a borderline top 10 heavyweight ever. I wouldn't put him there simply because like his resume is not long enough and there's enough guys with long resumes. But if that resume even had like 3-4 more years on it, I think you could argue he's already a top 10 heavyweight ever. Like the talent was there. And not to mention, my man's career got derailed by diverticulitis. Like if it wasn't for that, which he was diagnosed with in November of 2009, he may have never even lost to Kane and Overeem. Like we don't know. So yeah, there's a lot of ifs about Brock Lesnar, about exactly what he could have been. I'm a big believer in like the potential of an all MMA all the time Brock Lesnar.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
With that said, his life would have been much, much different. Like, first off, who knows if he would even got that UFC break without being a WWE superstar? Like, yeah, he was an NCAA champion, so maybe he still gets it a little further down the line. Who knows? But secondly, he's much less rich and much less famous. So I'm guessing Brock is pretty happy with the decisions that he's made. Like, does he wish he didn't get sick and he could have gone out on a different note in MMA? Sure. Like, does he wish he probably got that Fedor fight that we thought he was going to get for a little bit at the time? Sure. But overall, I think things have worked out pretty well for Brock Lesnar.
Yeah, man. I mean, what decision did he have to make, right out of college to go into pro wrestling instead of something like fighting?
I just don't think it was that big of a thing back then.
Yeah.
I really think that if it was today, like if he was getting out of wrestling today, 2021, a 21-year-old Brock Lesnar, I think he probably really entertains MMA from jump.
Because what about that other elite Olympian who just...
Gable Stevenson.
He's going pro wrestling.
He's Brock's boy.
And he's not going to MMA.
Well, the thing you also got to keep in mind is did the WWE teach Brock how to have a personality? Because I don't know anything about this Gabe, the Gabe kid, other than the fact that he was, I saw the wrestling match that he had in the Olympics. And then I've seen the interviews that kind of came afterwards after his subsequent win. So that's all I really know about him. I don't know anything about his personality or anything like that. Brock always seems like he's had that showmanship ability, that like, fuck y'all, I'm here kind of thing. Like he's always seemed to have that. So I just think that he would have been like the American McGregor had he come up, from a younger age and focused on MMA from jump. I don't think he needed WWE to have that personality or to build that personality. I think that would have come regardless of what he did.
Yeah, I agree with you. I really do. I think if it was a different time, he very well could have gone right into MMA. It wasn't quite so mainstream at that point. And now someone built like him, who was an NCAA champion, he would have gotten so many people like, dude, you got to try MMA. You got to get into MMA. Camp's talking to him. Coaches talking to him. Just like Gable Stevenson has had. Now, granted, Gable is kind of, I don't want to say Brock's protege, but he takes advice from Brock. They're close. And I think maybe Brock steered him toward the avenue of like, do WWE for a year or two, you're going to become a star, and then you go. It kind of seems like that might be what's happening. That's what Gable has kind of hinted at, which makes sense. But I even wonder if Gable's kind of already training MMA right now, whereas Brock probably wasn't even thinking about it at that time in his life. So it's interesting. But yeah, Gable's a little bit of a similar case.
I mean, to Uch's point, Brock Lesnar graduated college and spent years in pro wrestling. And then he transitioned to MMA later in his adulthood, and he beat up dudes. He beat up Frank Mir. He beat up a UFC champion and took the belt.
He got subbed by Frank Mir.
I was gonna say let's give Frank Mir his credit. He did not just get railroaded by this guy. He subbed him. He got fucked up in the first fight, he still almost broke Brock Lesnar's whole leg apart.
It's true.
Like from a man who's literally snapped somebody's arm on camera. It was very possible that Brock Lesnar was going home like with half a leg that night.
Yes,
I'm sorry, Brock Lesnar. Did I call him Frank Lesnar?
Yeah, it's their chimera. Frank Mir is one of the all-time greats.
100%.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Sure.
Mark, you alluded to earlier, just before your top 10, that Brock is sort of borderline top 10. Would you say Frank Mir is in your top 10?
So I don't know. I would have to run through names. Like I'd have to see how many names there are, but I will say that on that list, however it falls, Mir is above Brock. Yes, to answer that question. Who? Like, should I try to think of this?
We could do a whole episode on
Fedor, Stipe, Reem, Verdum, Nog, Krokop, Dos Santos, probably Barnett. I would probably have all those guys above Mir. That's 8.
I don't think I would.
Barnett is a debatable one.
I guess Dos Santos beat him, but like.
Oh, Dos Santos.
By that point, like
Mir, I would have above Mir. Oh, Kane. I forgot Kane.
Yeah. Okay.
So that's 9.
Maybe Mir's to strike with JDS. Like,
no, but Barnett is a deep cut, man. A lot of current MMA fans don't know about Josh Barnett and how good he was.
So what did I name? I named 8 who I would definitely have above Mir, and then maybe I think I'd have Barnett above Mir, man. So maybe Mir's 10.
Really?
I don't know if I'm forgetting anyone. I love Frank Mir, but I'd have to look at it. But Mir would be above Brock, if that's the question.
Like I said, Mir's issue has always been his striking. That's always been his Achilles heel.
And they'd all be above Mark Coleman because he's overrated.
man, Ooge. Shout out to Ooze to close this thing out. See what these fan questions do. They open up the floodgates of all these great debate topics. So one last time, Ooge, out in Turkey on the other side of the planet.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, my friend, for the thoughtful question. And also, Ooge, keep them coming, man. Maybe we'll address them on another episode.
Yeah.
And for everybody who's listening, please, guys, submit your fan questions. Anything you want to submit as a hot topic or a burning question that you have and you want to hear our takes on it and you want to engage with us on social media, Ooge DM'd us with this question. So don't hesitate. It doesn't have to be a YouTube comment. It doesn't have to be a social media comment. Just DM us, throw us your question. Just be like, hey, I want to hear you guys take on this. And thank you so much, Ooge, out in Turkey.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Ooge.
Yeah, man.
And real quick, I didn't even think about DC. I guess you got to throw him in that conversation
absolutely.
as well.
You definitely do. So maybe Frank here doesn't reach the top 10.
Yeah, it's an interesting list. I mean, one day we're going to do episodes about all-time ranks of divisions. And the heavyweight one is one of the most interesting ones because you could probably argue a lot of guys in different orders in that division.
For sure.
With Fedor as number one.
Well, let's move on, guys. Once again, folks, like and subscribe in all the places, social media at @new_MMA show. With that, let's hop into our news, our headlines and current events with Omar's Inside the MMA Sphere.
Boom. I'm going to let you guys know right now, I've been looking at soundboards on Amazon, so our sound effects might be going as we're going live.
Oh, that's cool.
So you guys might hear it while we do it.
Oh,
that's really
just
cool.
an FYI, might be upgrading the piece here. So stay tuned.
Love it.
All right, guys. So let's get right into it. We got a couple of stories, and then we've got some fight announcements. Eagle FC actually kicked off their first event. This went down in Miami this past weekend. I'm going to just go through a couple of interesting names that we haven't probably heard in quite some time. Sergey Karatanov, who we were talking about recently, who was over at Bellator, we did a fight with Eagle FC, and he beat the crap out of Tyrone Spong. It's sad for Tyrone Spong. I kind of like him, so that's a rough one right there. Rashad Evans, finally back with a win. Rashad Evans wins. Unanimous
Rashad
decision.
Evans, he totally changed his life around, didn't he? Is
Yeah,
he like a vegetarian now, or like a fruitarian? Like he only eats fruit or something?
That. Yeah.
He went through a big. I know he did like ayahuasca and some other life-changing experience things that made him kind of open himself up to new things. All I know is that he seems to be on the right track. So good for Rashad Evans. Yeah. Ray Borg, another one who we've seen come and go. Fight announcement here, dropped out later. Basically, it's just had a rough time kind of actually making it to the ring. So it was nice to see him get in there, and he gets another win by unanimous decision. John Doomsday Howard, who knew that man was still fighting? Interesting. Unfortunately, he lost via unanimous decision, but I was still very interested to see his name on the list there. Also, Anthony Njokuani was also on that card, which some of you guys may not know him. He's he's a little on the OG side when it comes to UFC. But very interested to see that he's still fighting. Unfortunately, he lost via TKO.
His brother's making his UFC debut on Saturday.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, is that his brother?
Yep.
Oh, all right.
Dude, I always liked Njokuani, man. He was always
Same.
exciting.
So did I.
Same.
Yeah.
That's why I bring it up, man. I always like the way that he fights, and I just hadn't heard his name in quite some time. So, Eagle FC doing big things. I was just talking to these guys about how I might go check out an Eagle FC fight myself the next time they have one in Florida.
Yeah, man.
I can probably do that now. Next on the list, Aljamain Sterling had an interview, and I guess they had a lot to say. Apparently, people are talking shit about Aljamain, about how he doesn't sell fights and this, that, and the third. And Aljamain decided to take a shot at Sean O'Malley by saying that no one's paying $75 to watch Sean O'Malley. And I gotta say, it took me back because I was like to myself,
I don't know, man. I don't know.
Realistically, and you guys know I love Aljo, right? Like realistically though, if I had to choose, if I had only one choice between watching Sean O'Malley fight for $75 or Aljamain for $75.
Yeah.
Realistically, I'm probably gonna go with Sean O'Malley. I'm just saying.
I mean, it's hard not to.
I'm just
There are probably data scientists that work for the UFC that have real answers to this, but I would guess that Sean O'Malley drives clicks and eyeballs much more than Aljamain Sterling.
Yeah.
Even though he's the champ.
Pretty safe guess.
Other
Aljamain
than
just keeps
TJ
saying
Dillashaw, other than TJ Dillashaw, I would bet that O'Malley sells the most tickets, maybe other than Dillashaw, in the bantamweight division.
I don't know. I even believe Dillashaw is such a draw.
I think Dillashaw is still a pretty big draw.
You think so?
But
I think Aldo's
O'Malley,
still a draw.
O'Malley might be a bigger name among casuals.
Yeah, that's really. I think O'Malley is a bigger name among a lot of these guys just because of the fact that casuals know him. They find him fun for different reasons, and they'll then just watch him fight because he's fighting.
Yeah.
No one's going to follow Aldo the way that they follow O'Malley.
No.
But listen, no. But here's the thing about O'Malley. To quote Conor McGregor, and to fulfill every MMA podcast's quota of mentioning Conor McGregor at least once in every episode, O'Malley backs it up. O'Malley's freaking great. He's a great fighter, and he's always exciting to watch, and he's always a threat to knock anybody out at any moment in every fight.
I mean, small caveat. We are here now where he is going to have to show that he can still back it up against someone who matters. He is yet to do that.
I will say that the day that I was sold on O'Malley, as far as not just his striking, right? Because we all knew that he could bang, right, from the first time we saw him in the Contender Series. But when that man started fighting with one leg, I was like, okay, this kid's crazy. He's on some other shit right now. So yeah. I knew he was going to be something more than just a kid who could throw strikes. He's a crazy character, and I don't think he at any point is he going to be somebody who quits out of a fight. Even that Chito fight, like half broke his leg, and Chito had to like basically half knock him out for that fight to end. So I don't know. Aljo just keeps saying shit that just makes him look worse and worse. I wish he would just stop having interviews at this point.
Yes, I mean, some guys say stuff. It's like, don't these guys have like a PR person?
Do they listen? I don't know. Next on the list, Kevin Holland. Apparently somebody decided it'd be a good idea to DM Kevin Holland talking shit about his wrestling, and basically said, I could out wrestle you. And so Kevin Holland said, come see me then. And so the dude showed up and got his whole ass whooped and subbed. So what's the lesson? Stay in your lane and stop calling out professional fighters.
Okay, I saw this video. The guy at least looked like, based on what he was wearing, like he had some kind of training.
Mike.
He didn't look like a guy who
did. I think that's why he was so confident that he was going to win.
No, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no.
You don't go on Amazon. You don't buy a pair of fucking shorts or jiu-jitsu pants, walk into a professional MMA gym, and then challenge a professional MMA fighter to a grappling match after one of your classes because you think you can do it. This is the most ridiculous thing.
That's what it was. It's a guy who trains probably, and he was like, "Oh, I'm good at grappling," and Kevin Holland sucks at it. Like, I'm gonna beat Kevin Holland, and like, no, there's levels.
Imagine saying that Kevin Holland sucks at grappling because some of the greatest grapplers in the world have
what people don't get,
beaten him on TV, and so immediately he sucks at grappling.
Like Kevin Holland would turn you into a pretzel.
Yeah,
if he wanted to.
Yeah. People are just wild to me sometimes. I don't understand.
Yes,
people who walk into gyms and just challenge people, which apparently happens more than I realized.
Dude, didn't this happen with Derek Lewis? Like, who fucking says, let me challenge Derek Lewis?
Do you remember when this happened with Deontay Wilder way back when?
Yeah. Yep.
Dude.
Yep.
Talk about a kid.
That was that crazy guy. That crazy guy.
Yeah, I mean, that was very intentional, but like,
Yeah. I now wish I run into that dude now because I'd be ready. I know his shtick. I'd be ready for him.
He just throws wild hooks. That's like all you gotta
It's not even
look
that.
out for.
It's not even that. He sells this whole thing where like he sells the whole thing where he's like, you want to just spar a little bit and just kind of just play around, and then he goes 100% from jump on you.
Yeah,
and then when you're like, whoa, what the fuck? This isn't what I signed up for. He goes, I win.
Right.
And I'd be ready for him though at this point because I know.
But you know what else? The thing with what was the story about? It's Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland. It reminds me of like when dudes challenge like a guy in the NBA to play one-on-one, a guy who's like,
oh, that's another one, dude.
who's like a guy who's like not a starter in the NBA, like a Bryan Scalabrine.
Yeah, so I'm saying that's the perfect example. He does this to people all the time.
He's like, oh, you think that I'm a scrub because I'm a scrub in like NBA terms? You think that I'm just a scrub at basketball? And then he like routs them in a one-on-one game.
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, man, there are real levels to this.
People don't get it. People do not get it.
A guy who rides the bench in the NBA is 100 times better than anybody else watching who's like, oh man, Bryan Scalabrine, he's like the human victory cigar. Put him in at the fourth quarter if you're up by 20. He's a scrub.
Yes.
Dude, he would wreck you.
I don't know why they think they got drafted in the first place. Why do you think that they're there? They're not like they're there for a reason.
The worst player in the NBA is easily, if he played with you, the best player you will have ever seen in your life.
The way you think about it, right? How many players are there in the NBA? Like in general, like throw a number out.
15 times 30, right? So what's that? 450.
Probably a good. Yeah, all right.
Wow.
Basically, the top 450 players in the country out of
world.
In the world.
Yeah, you're
100%.
right. You're right. World. Out of billions of people, and you think you can talk shit to any of them? It's wild to me.
It's what social media does. People are dumb.
Oh, I know.
People are just not smart.
Dumb.
I know. Yeah. I know. It's always fun when they get a little, act right.
Oh,
I mean, we could put that back in MMA terms. Somebody like a Caitlin Chukagian, who our love for Caitlin Chukagian is well documented on this show. Caitlin Chukagian would beat the piss out of just about anybody on the internet who talks shit about Caitlin Chukagian.
Oh, yeah.
If Mark got in the cage with Caitlin Chukagian, Mark would get lit up.
Yeah, it would be 10 Mississippi. Like,
Right.
it would be over.
As a matter of fact, if you've ever watched one of the Jackass movies, there's one of them where he gets lit up by this Muay Thai fighter. That would be Mark, just getting lit up left and right.
Maybe
but I'm fully aware of that.
It's not the best example because Caitlin Chukagian like wins a lot. But even like a UFC fighter who doesn't have even a winning record, but who has like 10, 20 fights on their record, even if they don't have a great record, they will beat the crap out of you.
Oh, yeah.
I'm now imagining Mark getting lit up while getting yelled at with the key eyes. And Mark just taking these hits, just shut up. Just shut up.
She's hitting me and I'm like, stop flicking your punches. Follow through. Follow through.
Oh my god.
Oh my god.
All right. Let's move on.
All right.
Okay, stop.
Next on the list, Al Iaquinta back in the news. Just giving us a little update with what his situation is. So we had an understanding that Al Iaquinta was probably done with MMA at this point. He doesn't seem to be as sure anymore. He seems to think that there might still be, a place for him in MMA. I don't know if he's necessarily suggesting the UFC specifically at this point, but I know he was, seems to be open to the idea of potentially still doing MMA. He's had multiple knee injuries though. At this point.
Al Iaquinta of him.
Yeah. But he's had multiple knee injuries, and so his whole thing is that he's starting to finally feel better. He has had surgeries in the past, and he was trying to avoid it, another surgery this time around. So he went to Colombia, did some stem cell stuff and physical therapy, and he seems to say, according to him, his knees feeling way better and well enough that he thinks that he could do, well again in MMA. But at the same time, he's like, but now that I feel good, like, do I want to keep putting my leg through it again? Like, do I want to go through this all over again, or am I just good being good? So I think that's kind of where he's at. And, he was admitting that it's difficult to kind of put the gloves down. There's, like we hear from most fighters, there's nothing like a professional fight. There's nothing like walking in those arenas. So who knows what's going to happen? There might be one last Al Iaquinta send-off fight because maybe he doesn't want to go out the way he did. I don't blame him. It wasn't a great fight on his part. So we'll see what happens, but it sounds like his injuries are starting to heal up, so we might see one more.
Well, that's good.
Next on the list, Paul Daly is retiring. After a 19-year career in MMA, Paul Daly is finally hanging it up. I am totally okay with this. He's not really going out on the bottom at any point or any kind of, losing streak or anything crazy like that. He's, had his losses here and there, but for the most part, he's still one of the most dangerous people in Bellator, in his division, in the world, frankly. So it's nice to see that he's riding off into kind of a sunset to a certain extent. Paul Daly, though, at this point, his reasoning is he's tired. He's another one who's been through years of going to the gym, years of training, years of getting his ass beat, years of injuries. And at this point, he's got a bad back, and he wakes up just with a fucked up back and just tired all the time, and he's done.
Yeah, I heard him say that, where he was like, yeah, like Ariel asked him if he had any injuries, and he was like, yeah, my back, man. Every morning that I wake up, my back hurts. I want to be like, so does mine. Like, so does everyone's. Like, fucking, it's not because you're a fighter. It's just because you're in your 30s.
But yeah, I mean, listen. You know me. Any injury, any guy who's ready to go, who doesn't need to take more damage, I'm all about it. So.
Oh yeah, it's Paul Daly is definitely free to go. And like you said, the man had a hell of a career. Like he never 100%. Really fell off the whole time. Yeah. Like he just recently beat Sabah Hamasi, who we were just saying looked like an animal this weekend. So like, yeah.
I think he's had one boring fight in his whole life. And he took somebody down, I think, for the entire fight. Now I can't remember who it was. Was it MVP?
MVP, yep.
Yeah, that was probably the most boring I've ever seen Paul Daly in his career.
Yep.
So he gets a pass. Everybody, I feel like, should get at least one or two.
I bet Paul Daly will, always be wondering, what if he hadn't been sort of goaded by Josh Koscheck being a dick to him and made it, not made him, but made him throw a punch after the bell and got him kicked out of the UFC. Well, what could have been?
Yeah.
Although I'm sure he made a lot of money Bellator.
It's just it was such a black. I mean, that time especially was such a black eye in his career because nobody really wanted to touch him.
It was his fault. It was his fault.
No one wanted to touch him in that moment.
Yeah,
it was not good.
Even so, like he was the style the UFC loves, obviously, like knocking dudes out. But like at that time, the guys who were in that division, the wrestlers, I'm not sure he would have reached any ceiling that was much higher than what he has reached anyway.
100%.
So
100%. Even to this day now, his wrestling isn't really that much better. You know what I mean?
He's a striker.
So, yeah.
I mean, that guy has given us a lot of bangers. So
100%. Even the fights that he's lost. The fights that he's lost have even been exciting for the most part.
Yep.
Nick Diaz versus Paul Daly is easily one of my favorite fights. Period.
Hell yeah. That fight's legendary.
Yep.
Also,
hey, one of the best MMA nicknames ever. Semtex, badass.
Do you know I don't even know what that means?
It's a type of dynamite, right? Or a type of explosive?
It's like napalm. It's like
really?
It's like dynamite or something like that.
I literally never knew that.
It's a type of explosive. I think it's more powerful than.
It's cool. Trust me, it's a fucking badass nickname.
It's very cool.
All right, guys. Next on the list, we finally have a place where Jeremy Stephens will now call home. PFL.
Okay.
Jeremy Stephens is not doing BKFC like we all could have swore he would be doing. He was going to PFL. He is going to go for the million.
Is he doing it at lightweight, I'm assuming, as opposed to featherweight? Do you know?
Where is Anthony Pettis fighting?
Lightweight.
Then he's doing it at lightweight because he called out Anthony. He called out fat and what do you call him? Fat and out of shape Pettis. So them's be fighting words, dog.
I mean, look, Pettis has been pretty busy. He's mounting his own promotion.
Pettis is also getting a little bit of a dad bod. The man is in his mid-30s. You know what I mean?
Hey, Showtime FC, their first show is like in a week.
Dude, Benson Henderson is a free agent in Bellator. Can we get him signing up for this? We'll just get like that whole era of UFC lightweights fighting for $1 million. Like, PFL. I'm here for it. Gilbert Melendez, is he around? Like, let's get him in.
Was it me that had the Benson Henderson, Anthony Pettis 3 on our our like crazy takes of 2022?
Yes.
We can make this happen. This
PFL,
is totally
make it
possible.
It is.
All right, let's see. Last on the list as far as stories are concerned is a little bit more Francis Ngannou. So I showed you guys the article. I sent you guys the article on our own time about Randy Couture kind of weighing in on it because Randy Couture kind of went through something similar during his day where he was supposed to fight or there was talk of him fighting Fedor. And because of the UFC and their contracts and the way the UFC champions clauses are, there was a lot of argument about what was legal and what wasn't, and basically the UFC just kind of put him in so much legal battle that by the time it was going to be over, Randy wasn't going to fight anybody anyway. And so that was kind of what Randy's point was in regards to this legal battle is Ngannou's whole thing right now is basically trying to wait out the clock. And there might be a lot more specifics as to when that clock started in the contract than we might know ourselves, obviously. And there might be a little bit more nuance to the language inside of the contracts. Mark, I think there was something about that champions clause being
Yep.
Triggered, and then you get like an additional 2 or 3 fights or something like that.
Yep.
But there is also a time limit as well, and so there are a lot of stipulations. And then you start getting into the nuances, and that's when you start bringing in the lawyers and the legal teams and the arbitrations and this and the that. And all of that all together, one, costs a shit ton of money that the UFC has way more of than Francis Ngannou does.
Yes.
And on top of that, it costs Ngannou something he can never get back, which is time.
Yeah.
And if Ngannou decides he wants to wait this out, how long is he actually going to wait it out? Because the UFC really doesn't lose anything as, you know, in comparison to Ngannou waiting than Ngannou does waiting himself, right? Ngannou loses his belt because they will 100% strip his ass. Forget interim, they'll strip him, and they'll just make somebody else the undisputed champion. 2, he can't fight anywhere else until the legal dispute is over. And so he's basically going to what? Give up the prime 2, 3, 4 years he has left fighting for something to then, if he does win, probably won't really fight after that at all. And even if he does, he might not nearly be as good because he's now taken however many years off. So Randy Couture made an interesting point. He's like, he's really got to figure out what's the most important thing for him right now, if he wants to kind of keep fighting this or if he wants to keep doing what he loves. Because if he wants to keep doing what he loves, fighting this the way that he's doing it is not going to work.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of sad to kind of hear that reality, but that does seem to kind of check out with where this is going.
That's how I felt the whole time. Like he's too good and too big of a star for the UFC to ever let him leave. But it is not past them at all to be like, oh, we don't need him. We're moving on with this division. But they'll just keep him in fucking purgatory.
Yep.
So like he doesn't really have any leverage.
Yeah. Yeah. They did. However, Randy Couture did bring up a point about how it was interesting that the UFC allowed him to fight out his contract, though, and that they didn't force him to re-sign before he fought that fight with Gane.
I wonder if it's because they knew if he won, it would trigger this thing. Granted, you're right. I guess if he lost, what would have happened? Then he could have walked. So, yeah, that is interesting, I guess.
Yeah. So I guess we'll see what happens. Like we said before, like we talked about last week, and Gane is going to be out for at least 9 months anyway with that knee injury, with the ACL tear and the MCL tear. So we won't be hearing about this probably until summer, fall, something like that, when they really start talking again seriously. So we'll see what happens, but it's interesting to hear what Couture's take was, considering he kind of went through something very similar. So
DC backed my suggestion the other day. He said he thinks they should do Bones and Stipe.
Yeah, he also said Bones needs to shut the fuck up and actually get back out there and fighting, which I second myself.
Correct.
Bones needs to just stay off of Twitter and just get to work. All right, let's get into some fight announcements. Quick change for this weekend. Phil Hawes is out of the fight this weekend against Sam Alvey. Brendan Allen will be stepping in to fight Sam Alvey this Saturday. That fight is actually just got a little bit more interesting in my part. Gabriel Benitez versus David Onama is going down February 19th. You guys know I love me some Gabriel Benitez, win or lose. Mahmoud Muradov is out against his fight against Wellington Turman. Misha Serkinov will now be stepping in against Wellington Turman, and that will be on February 26th. Nikita Krylov will be fighting Paul Craig. That is a straight-up banger.
Yeah,
I cannot wait for that fight. That was added now to UFC London. One more to that fantastic card, March 19th. Mark DeCasey versus Vyacheslav Borshev. If you guys don't remember, we talked about him a couple weeks ago or a week ago. I'm not sure anymore at this point. But he had that beautiful left body hook that really sat that kid down. And then he did those, whatever those crazy kicks are. Yeah. I don't know. Love the way that kid dances, though. That shit is hilarious.
Is that on the London card, too?
That is on the Columbus card, actually.
Oh, because it isn't Jacasey English? I'm surprised they didn't put that on that card.
Yeah, he is English.
I think
right?
he is English, yeah. That's going down UFC Columbus on the 26th. Neil Magny finally has a fight. It is not Chimaev. Neil Magny will be fighting Max Griffin.
Yeah.
That is going down March 26th. Interesting choices there, I guess.
Yeah, I don't really get that one, to be honest.
Yeah. Uriah Hall finally has a fight booked now against Andre Muniz, who has been on fire lately. So that'll be interesting to see what he can do there. April 16th is when that's going down, UFC Fight Night. Tanner Bozer back in the mix against Rodrigo Nascimento. He's going to be fighting April 23rd. Donald Cerrone back after a long layoff, a decently timed layoff, I would say, versus one who's had an even longer layoff, Joe Lozon. That is, first of all, I don't even know. If you don't know who Joe Lozon is, I recommend you Google and find out.
Oh,
Joe Lozon is an OG
Warrior.
of OGs.
Warrior.
He
Fan
has
favorite
not
and
fought-
rightfully so.
Yeah, dude. I mean, his jiu-jitsu is some of the best in the game. He's got very heavy hands. Wasn't necessarily the best kicker in the world, but had very decent boxing and very, very sick submission skills. So interesting
Boston
to
guy.
see him back in the mix now. A little bit older now, obviously, and a little bit wiser.
Yeah, I kind of want that to be a double retirement fight. They just both hug
Same.
at the end and say, "We love you all. See you later."
Yeah,
Oh,
I'm
man.
also kind of as much as I love Cerrone, I'm
heart.
kind of at a point now where I'm tired of watching him lose badly.
Yeah.
So
I don't think he loses. I'd be surprised if he lost to Lozon personally, but we'll see.
I mean, I wouldn't, to be honest. I mean, he gets caught, and Lozon is known to catch a dude, so it happens. Next on the list, Blagoy Ivanov is fighting Marcos Rogerio de Lima. That is going down UFC 274 on May 7th. Jamal Emmers versus Danielle Pineda is targeted for UFC Fight Night on May 14th. Holly Holm versus Ketlin Vieira will be headlining UFC Fight Night on May 21st. And last but not least, Chase Hooper back in the mix versus Felipe Colares. That is going down UFC Fight Night May 21st. That's all I got for you boys.
Okay. Thank you, sir, for giving us all of the updates in the MMA headlines.
Boom.
Well, gentlemen, let us now turn towards the future. This weekend, UFC Fight Night, Hermansson versus Strickland. This is actually UFC Fight Night 200. Very cool. All right, guys. Let's first check into these prelims. Omar, let me throw it up to you first. Any names, any fighters or fights in these prelims that you just want to highlight for the listener to make sure they check out this weekend?
I would say the one that's on my radar is Hakeem Dawodu. Kids, he's had kind of an interesting UFC career so far. He's got a couple of split decisions, and I think he recently lost his last fight. But he's very talented, and he's got potential. Just kind of always interested to see kind of how he shows up to his fights. But he's always exciting as far as I'm concerned when he goes in there. So I'm definitely keeping a lookout for him.
Mark, what about you? These prelims, what draws your attention? What do you want to bring attention to for our listeners and viewers to check out for these prelims at this fight night?
Yeah, it's not the most stacked fight night card that there ever was, but I still think there's some things worth mentioning. I'll actually give you kind of a handful on the prelims, if I may. Jason Witt versus Philip Rowe is a closely matched fight that's just going to look wild because Philip Rowe is 5 inches taller than him and has a 10.5-inch reach advantage on him. So it's going to kind of be Rowe striking against Witt's wrestling, which obviously Witt has in his bag, and he just showed that he was super tough in that last fight against Bryan Barberena. So maybe he does try to bang with a guy who has that much of a reach advantage on him. So could be an interesting one. For some reason, I have a feeling Rowe's going to catch him, but we will see. Beyond that, I believe his name is pronounced Jailton, but I could be wrong. Jailton Almeida is debuting light heavyweight with some hype behind him. The dude looks like a statue and has nasty jiu-jitsu. He's a big favorite against Danilo Marquez. He's minus 400. So we will see what he can do in his debut. And then a few more. You have Chidi Njokuani, who we were just mentioning earlier. He is the younger brother of Anthony Njokuani. He's a guy who's been around for a while. Like, he has earned his stripes. And he's finally getting a shot in the UFC. He's fighting Marc-Andre Barriault, who has won 3 in a row. starting to really show the promise the UFC thought he had when they kept him around after he started his UFC career 0-3. So he has shown why. But I like Njokuani, man. He's a gamer. He's a tough dude. He's been in there with like Max Griffin, Andrei Koreshkov, John Salter. Like those guys are all welterweights, mind you, because he was a welterweight for a long time. But welterweight is very likely the more talented division than middleweight. So that might still be saying something. So I'm curious to see him in his debut. And I've always liked the Njokuanis. So we'll see what he has. Hakeem Dawodu, as Omar said, that's a good fight. Him and Mike Trizano. It's a weird fight because Trizano is 9-1. He's 3-1 in the UFC, but he doesn't really have like a level of victory yet that he can hang his hat on. Whereas then you have Dawodu, who does have those victories. He beat Julio Arce, he beat Zabar Tsukugov, but every fight he's in is like the most razor close fight you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
So it's a tough one. Like, do you want to be in that type of fight with Mike Trizano? He feels like a guy you don't want to let hang around. So I don't know. That's a tough one to pick. It may come down to that Dawodu just has the speed advantage, but I think that's an interesting fight. And then the last prelim is Miles Johns, who I thought has really looked good in his last couple fights. He's looked like a guy who's kind of figured out his game. So I'm curious to see if he'll take another step. So not like huge fights happening, but noteworthy stuff, I would say.
Definitely. All right, guys, let's hop up into this main card, and we're going to go up the card and finish with this main event, which I'm very excited about. So fight opening the main card. Let's see. Where are we at? Julian Erosa versus Steven Peterson. Mark, what's your take?
A few years ago, this feels like it would have been like a proper matchup. Like, I feel like Erosa was kind of on that lower level that I would consider Steven Peterson to be on. But the dude has gone a lot better lately. Like, what we've seen from Erosa of late has been legit. It's hard for me not to think that he's going to style on Steven Peterson. Like, Peterson is tough as hell, and Erosa does dumb things sometimes, so you never know. But I think he probably puts it on him here.
Omar, what about you? Steven Peterson coming off of a win against baby Ben Askren, Chase Hooper. Erosa also coming off of a win himself over Charles Jourdain. What's your take?
Yeah, I like I said, I've been a big fan of Julian Erosa. There's something about the way he fights. He's a very like all or nothing fighter. He never really plays it safe. That's not really his thing. So I'm always interested to see him fight, and it's been nice to see his kind of. It's almost been like since the pandemic, something has changed. I don't know what it was, but ever since then, he's gotten way better. He's been putting it together just a lot more, and he's been getting a lot more victories at this point. And they've been like good victories. There's none of this like split decision, kind of squeaked it out kind of shit. He's been fucking people up. So
yeah, he's been a dangerous dude.
Yeah. So I'm interested to see, man. Like I said, I love watching him fight, so I'm interested to see what he does on here. And if we're being frank, I'm here to watch him fight. I'm not really here for Steven Peterson right now. Steven Peterson might do something crazy, but as of right now, I'm here for Erosa.
Okay. All right. In the middleweight division, Tresean Gore against Bryan Battle. Omar, let me stay with you. What's your take on this matchup at middleweight?
Yeah, so this is one complete fight right now that I'm excited for, just because both of these guys were supposed to fight for the tough finale. I don't even know. Time is irrelevant now at this point. But for the most recent tough of series that went down, they were supposed to fight in the finale. Tresean got injured, and so he had to pull out, and so they had to replace him for the Bryan Battle fight. Bryan ends up winning the fight. He ends up winning the tough championship, and now we get the fight rebooked that we should have gotten the first time around. So very interested from a storyline standpoint to see kind of how this would have turned out essentially. Mm-hmm. Tresean, I think on paper is more skilled than Bryan Battle is, but Bryan Battle is just, I mean, his name is just so perfect because the kid is so scrappy and he's so tough that it's difficult to kind of count him out of any fight, regardless of how much better somebody else might be. So, with that being said, if I had to choose one, I think I'm going to go Bryan Battle by decision.
Okay, Mark, what's your take? Gore versus Battle clashing at middleweight.
He does have a great name, but then he puts Pooh Bear in the middle of it. So you have Bryan Pooh Bear Battle, and I'm just not sure if it sounds as cool. But yeah, I'm really glad the UFC is doing this. There's been instances of this before where there was like an injury and a guy had to pull out of the finale. And then I want to say it was like the Cesar Ferreira. I forget how he pronounces his last name. Some of them say Ferreira, some of them say Ferreira. But I think it was his season that someone got hurt, like Daniel Sarafian, I think it might have been. And they never did it. And it, like, even though they were both in the UFC, and it was like, hello, like, can we make the real finale? So I may be saying the wrong one, but it's happened before where they haven't made it. So I'm glad they're like jumping on it and being like, all right, let's get the real finale we were going to have. I do think it's close. The odds are pretty close. Gore's the favorite. He's minus 170. Battle is plus 140. Yeah. It's a tough fight. Battle's tough. He's tricky. He's got tricky subs that he kind of gets like out of nowhere a little bit. But I thought this at the time. I still think it now. I just think Gore has the kind of power that you don't want to be touched with. And I think it's going to be the difference. I don't know if I think it's a knockout or just that he like hurts him and the fight swings in his favor and he ends up taking it on the cards. I guess if I'm supposed to make a pick here, I'll say that he lasts to the cards, but I think the power is the differentiator for Gore.
Okay, moving up this card, Shavkat Rakhmonov. He has a cool nickname, Nomad, against Carlston Harris. Mark, let me say with you, what's your take on Rakhmonov versus Harris at welterweight, by the way?
So this the odds for this fight are Rakhmonov is minus 240, Harris is plus 190. It feels a little closer than that to me. These are two guys who have really impressed through their two fights each in the UFC so far. They're both 2-0. We haven't seen a ton from them, so it's a little hard to evaluate. Harris is a guy who like took the long road to the UFC. He's 17-4, but he's fought a bunch of guys. Kind of took a while for him to get here. He's 34 already, but he's looked great. And then Rakhmonov, on the other hand, is 27 years old. He's 14-0. He's undefeated. In two fights so far, he has looked basically perfect. So I don't know what to think. I feel like I don't have like a great feel of either guy just yet, but it's hard to not lean Rakhmonov. It wouldn't shock me if Harris gives him trouble, but Rakhmonov has just literally looked perfect through two fights. Like nothing has gone wrong. So I will lean him. I guess I'll say decision.
Okay. Omar, what's your take?
Yeah, I would have to probably say the same. Both of them are finishers for sure. And it could both of them can kind of go either way as far as I'm concerned. But when you got both of them being finishers on there, I would probably lean towards the more technical guy. So I would probably go with Rakhmonov.
Okay. Moving up into the co-main event in the middleweight division, Punahele.
I think you skipped one, Mike. I think you skipped Brendan Allen
and Sam Alvey.
Oh, it's not on the thing that I'm seeing.
Smiling Sam.
Smiling Sam has a new opponent in Brendan Allen. That is right. Omar, let me stay with you. Smiling Sam was singing Brendan Allen's praises for taking this fight on short notice. What do you have to say about this matchup that we're all kind of having to make picks on short notice?
Yeah, so, I mean, you can't really find a nicer guy than Sam Alvey. I mean, Sam Alvey would have probably taken him out to dinner before they even fought.
Yeah, man. He really earns that nickname.
Yeah, he's, like, the nicest guy in the world. I wish he fought as nice, like, as well as he is a nice guy. You know what I mean? He is, I mean, what the fuck? What is he on? 1, 2, 3. Yeah, like I mean, he hasn't, bro. He hasn't won a fight since Gian Vellante, which people would argue that's probably a gimme fight in 2018.
Yeah, I don't know how he still has a job. I really don't.
Because, and I'll tell you why. Because regardless of the fact that Sam Alvey keeps losing, every one of Sam Alvey's fights is pretty much exciting from beginning to end. The man never stops fighting, whether he wins or loses. And he's still dangerous even when he goes out there. People, style on him and they crack him and they piece him up. But when he tags people, they back up. So
I agree that he's still dangerous and that he never stops fighting, but I don't even think his fights are that exciting. Like so many times it's like Sam Alvey throw a punch, like, what are you doing? And he's just like waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting. So I don't know. I'm not a Sam Alvey guy. I will say he had a great quote today, or yeah, I guess it was today. I heard it today. He goes, they asked him about accepting the fight, short notice, whatever. And he's like, yeah, of course I accepted it. Like, I'll accept any fight. Like, if they needed me right now to fight Francis Ngannou, I'd fight him. I really hope they don't need me to fight Francis Ngannou. So that cracked me up. But yeah, I mean, Brendan Allen is a guy that I like. He's coming off the disappointing loss to Chris Curtis. And Sam Alvey is a guy who I think is kind of washed, unfortunately. So I expect Brendan Allen to get this done. If he doesn't, you are going to see me on the lifeboat hopping off the sinking ship that is Brendan Allen.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't really see Sam Alvey winning. I hope he does because Jesus, does he need it? But at the same time, I don't really see him winning, and I really don't understand what we're doing with this boy's career at this point because it just seems to be a detriment to leave him in the UFC and just keep giving him L after L after L after L.
Who, Alvey?
Yeah.
I mean, he's 35.
Yeah.
I mean, but
So
but like 35 isn't even like an excuse anymore in this day and age. Like, you got guys in their 40s that are wrecking people left and right.
True.
Wow. The heavy,
He also, he also had another good quote. He was like, yeah, I was happy Brendan Allen took the fight. Like, it sucks that he's good. I was kind of hoping it was someone who's not so good.
Nicest guy. He's such a nice guy.
He is a nice guy.
The same thing that we did with who's the jiu-jitsu guy? Ryan Hall.
Yeah.
Oh.
What look at Sam Alvey's face or his just his whole persona, his whole energy. What career does he look like he should be doing? Like he looks like he
looks like he's a fucking gym teacher, Mike.
Yeah.
He looks legitimately like he's not. He wouldn't be able to discipline children in like a science classroom. He's the guy who just wants the kids to have fun during gym class. That's who Sam Alvey is.
I sometimes I feel like he does have that like look sometimes where you're like, oh, like he's always smiling, but he does look like he like might have a little screw loose at the same time.
Yeah,
like,
I know exactly.
Weird, like where he goes like
yeah, when he's like mid punch.
Yeah. So I don't know.
He's
what.
a funny guy. I like the gym teacher. That's good. That's good.
Maybe like a painter. Like he comes and paints your house. You're like, I don't know if I trust this painter.
You mean like a contract painter?
Smiles too much. Yeah.
Oh,
Nice. Okay.
Honestly, I will say he does seem like also somebody that like if he was making a sandwich for you, he'd be so fucking happy about it.
Oh, like a deli guy, dude. That's a good one.
But like one of those happy ass dudes.
Yeah.
Oh, you want some cold cuts with that, man? Like he'd be that guy.
He's the guy who has been working at the deli for a long time, and he's really happy because he's pretty sure that the owner's going to sell him the deli in a few years.
Or like a bartender. I could see that too.
Totally.
Smiling Sam's.
We could go on with this all day.
Yeah. Okay, let's go on to this co-main finally. I like this fight. Punahele Soriano versus Nick Maximov. Mark, let me start with you. What's your take? We got Maximov. He's undefeated 7-0. Fighting out of Stockton. Trains at the Nick Diaz Academy. And Puna, another Hawaiian on the UFC roster, the 29-year-old. He himself is also 8-1 with 7 finishes, might I add. What's your take on this pretty exciting under-the-radar co-main event?
Yeah. Is it Maximov, not Maximov?
I believe John Anik pronounced it Maximov.
I didn't know that. Okay, so Maximov is going to try to wrestle Puna. He has good wrestling, but he's going to try to wrestle because he does not have the striking necessary to survive, and I don't think it's going to go well for him. I think Puna punishes him in this fight, and I think he kind of gets a little bit of a coming out party here. Not like Maximov is any kind of big opponent just yet, but the fact that they put him in this co-main slot, I think it might kind of be Puna's time to shine.
Okay. Omar, what's your take? Puna versus Maximov.
Yeah, I mean, I love watching Soriano fight. He's kind of an exciting guy. He's always there to bring it. I don't really know anything about Nick Maximov. I will say if he's part of the 305 camp, I might just have to go for him though.
Okay.
We might have to see what happens. But Soriano's a real danger, man. The kid can definitely lay you out. His punches are severe. His counter left hook is severe. it's honestly just a matter of if that boy can hold his cardio for 3 rounds, because he has had issues in the past where
Valid.
his arms start to look heavier than he does as a whole. So it's just one of those things that if and coming from the Nick Diaz camp, those boys know how to do their cardio.
Point.
So it's
Oh,
if we can
yeah.
get past round 1, it might not be a good night for Soriano. Very possible.
For sure.
Yeah, I didn't really think of that because I just don't think the fight is making it past like 7-8 minute mark, I would say. But if it does, yeah, it's a great point.
Kid's got heavy hands. Soriano's got heavy hands, so it's definitely possible that he lays this kid out quick. But if the Nick Diaz camp, if there's anything that they're good at, is boxing, cardio.
Yeah,
and jiu-jitsu.
I was surprised the odds were as close as they are. It's Puna's minus 200 and Maximov is plus 160, but you may have just hit on why, because I didn't really think of that, and that may be it.
Okay. I think we're ready, gentlemen, to get into this main event of UFC Fight Night, Hermansson versus Strickland. Once again, UFC Fight Night 200. I feel like that's noteworthy. A very consequential clash taking place in the middleweight division. 2 guys who are excellent. Might not be the biggest household names in terms of MMA, but definitely 2 guys that diehards like the 3 of us gentlemen on this here show very much pay attention to. That being Jack the Joker Hermansson taking on Sean Tarzan Strickland. Is that really his nickname? I've seen that. I'm like, who calls him Tarzan? It's like a kind of a random nickname for him. Anyway,
I kind of think it's like about, I mean, I could be totally wrong. I kind of always thought it was about like his gangliness, and that's why he's called that, but I could be wrong because he's very like long and.
Okay, anyway, let me cue this up first. I'll go to Omar first. Omar, we've got Hermansson fighting out of course, Oslo, Norway. He's a 33-year-old. He is 22-6 coming off of a win against the young star, Edmund Shabazian. And then we have Sean Strickland, man. This guy, he is the younger. He's 30 years old. He fights out of Corona, California. He's 24-3 as a pro, riding a 5-fight win streak heading into this fight against Hermansson. Most recently getting a unanimous decision victory over the always dangerous Uriah Hall. What is your take? The streaking Strickland going up against the very tough Scandinavian in Jack Hermansson.
Yeah, so both of these guys have very different games. Jack Hermansson is the fighter who is trying to grind you to hell. Basically sandpaper, that man. If he gets on you, he's trying to not get off of you, and he's trying to make you pay every minute for having him on you. He's done that in most of his fights. If the guys are able to keep him off of them, fights usually don't go Hermansson's way. I think we saw that in the Marvin Vettori fight, where Marvin was able to just basically kind of work him a little bit. And I think we also saw that in the Cannonier fight as well. And Cannonier put him out. So Hermansson is not without his faults. The problem with Strickland is the man is out of his mind. And when I say that, I mean that comes with a pressure that is very, very rare, I think, to find in the UFC. You find it even in considering how, if you put everybody who's in the UFC as essentially some of the best fighters in the world, there's still a very small handful of fighters that have the kind of pressure that Sean Strickland has inside of the cage. The man comes forward. He does not go backwards. You can beat him, and he's still coming forward. So it puts people in a position, especially the longer the fight goes on, where they're no longer confident that what they're doing is going to win them the fight. And you see people break all the time against Sean Strickland now. And it's fucking terrifying. The man is terrifying. I'm not personally a fan of his whole shtick and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's cool. It's his thing. He wants to murder people, and people love him for it, I guess. Whatever. Not my thing. At the end of the day, forget all that. What he does in the cage is absolutely crazy, because the pressure he brings is, bar none, some of the most disgusting pressure, the scariest pressure I've ever seen.
Yeah. Mark?
I like this matchup a lot, and I think that Sean Strickland probably does too. I think he has a chance to look really good here. I think Omar kind of hit on it. Hermansson is a guy who's very dangerous if he can get on top of you. Like Omar said, he has some slick grappling. He has great ground and pound. But on the feet, he can be vulnerable. And I see Sean Strickland as a guy who has solid takedown D, especially against the cage. And that's where Hermansson needs to be because he's a Greco guy. He's not like a blast double guy. I see Strickland as a guy who can get back up well if it does hit the ground. And on top of that, I've heard a couple guys, one of which was Michael Bisping, saying how absolutely nasty Sean Strickland's grappling is. Yeah. So that's something we haven't really seen yet. And Bisping was like really making a point of it. So if that's the case and Strickland never even feels the need to use it, he might be even better than we realize he is as he moves up these ranks here. And then lastly, we get to Strickland's strongest suit, which is that where Hermansson can be vulnerable is where Strickland is the strongest. He's going to walk Hermansson down. Like Omar said, his pace is brutal. He can take damage a lot better than Hermansson takes damage, in my opinion. His boxing is levels above, and he's just going to try to put it on him. So unless I'm wrong about the wrestling and the grappling and Hermansson can really manhandle him, which I don't expect, I just don't see how Hermansson avoids taking a beating as the fight goes on. Like, I don't mean a non-competitive beating. Like, I do think it could be a good fight, but just a fight that leaves us saying, like, shit, Strickland just put it on him. So that's what I see. I'll say Sean Strickland by unanimous decision. I kind of want to say it's a finish, but I feel like Strickland doesn't tend to find the finish. It's like he almost enjoys the fight and he like wants it to keep going. But I think it's going to be a clear decision for Strickland.
Okay. These two gentlemen are ranked sandwiched right next to each other in the UFC rankings. Mark, for our audience, let's have a mini Prio rankings check-in. Let our fans know, that's funny. Let our viewers know where we have them in the Prio rankings.
So I have Jack in the same spot as the UFC, number 6, correct? Is that where they have him?
Yes, 6 and 7.
And then I have Strickland at 9. I almost jumped him to 7 after his last fight. I still have him behind Till and Gastelum just because I feel like he doesn't have that win. Like Uriah Hall maybe was that win, and that's why I debated it. But other than that, I just feel like his resume is like not quite there yet. Like he's beating like Jack Marshman and like Krzysztof Jotko. So I kind of held him off from jumping those two guys, but I get why the UFC did not. But that's where I have him. And obviously he'll jump him if he beats Hermansson here. But what's crazy to me as you bring up these rankings is that I look at this matchup. Hermansson is number 6, right, in the UFC. And in my opinion, as I'm saying, I think Sean Strickland kind of works Jack Hermansson. Mm-hmm. But what's crazy is that I look above, and I kind of think the guys above work Sean Strickland. Like it's crazy the jump in my head. Like if he fights like Izzy or Whitaker or Vettori or Costa, I don't think any of those are going to go well for Sean Strickland. I really don't. I could be wrong. I don't know if I see him hanging with those guys. So I'll be very curious to see if he wins this, which I expect him to, what he looks like against one of those top guys, and see if I'm wrong on that.
Yeah, above Hermansson, from Costa up, it does seem to be sort of a real jump in, I guess, talent at middleweight.
Dude, honestly, I think he kind of smokes most of that division.
No,
Sean, you love Strickland. You always do, dude.
And like I said, I don't care for this man on like a personal level. Like I don't like the shit he talks.
Let's break it down. He fights Paulo Costa. You think he beats Paulo Costa?
That's a great fight.
I think he does beat Paulo Costa. I think he pressures Paulo Costa to shit. You do. Look at any of his fights, right? Any of the fights that he's had, especially in the last like 2-3 years, right? He has this bit, Strickland. He has this bit where he comes forward, right? His hands are up. He sometimes does like a shell where he's got one hand kind of on the outside. He's got one hand protecting his body. And the problem is these guys like to wing hooks. And so Strickland is literally blocking hooks left and right. And he barely gets touched in these fights. And in the fights that he barely gets touched in, he's beating the shit out of the guy on the other side.
Sean Strickland is very good at fighting.
And
he's good at fighting. It's just, I don't know.
The other thing that you have to keep in mind is he talks shit in the middle of these fights.
It's also, yes, he does employ the mind games.
People might not realize how much that really comes into play, especially when you're beating the shit out of somebody. Like, it's one thing if you're talking shit and you got blood running down your nose and you've just gotten busted up and the guy's like, dude, what are you doing? It's another thing when you've busted up the guy and you're still talking in the cage, and the guy doesn't know how to respond at this point. It takes its toll.
I would have said the matchup that I would give Strickland the best chance would be Brunson.
Brunson or Cannonier, I could see him hanging with more than the other four that I mentioned.
Who were the other ones? Because you said Costa,
Izzy, Whitaker, Vettori, Costa.
So Whitaker and Izzy, I think, are the two that he has the most trouble with personally.
Dude, I think Vettori would laugh at him and put it on him. I really do. And Costa just throws fucking nukes the whole time. Like, Strickland has looked this good.
But that's
like
why
he's fighting like Uriah Hall. Like, it's not coming back at him like it's going to come back at him from Costa. Like, he fought Krzysztof Jotko. He fought Brendan Allen, who I like, but like he's not that kind of striker. Like, I don't know. I just feel like when he takes, and again, it's masked in this fight because he's fighting Hermansson. I just feel like when he makes this jump and he tries to walk right at Vettori and Costa and Whitaker and Izzy, they're going to be like, all right, son, like, I'm going to put you down.
Nah, and I think it's the opposite, because I think a lot of these guys have that idea, and they're like, I 100% believe that Costa would be sitting in his fucking chair at home like, this guy, I beat this guy. I punch him, I put him out, I knock him out. I 100% believe that he's just talking shit
That's good.
in his house about how he's going to knock out Sean Strickland. 100% believe it. The problem is when he gets in there and he's not able to knock out Strickland in the first round because Strickland is either blocking everything or moving back from everything and popping him in the face, that by the second round, Costa has basically blown his wad trying to knock out this guy who he should have been knocking out and is now getting lit up. It's basically like Nick Diaz, like a white Nick Diaz is basically who this kid is.
Incorrect. Sean Strickland, I've said this before, he's the American Michael Bisping.
Okay, all right, fine. From the way he fights, though, he fights a lot more, in my opinion, like Nick Diaz. Yes, from a personality standpoint, I will actually give you American Bisping. That's fine.
I agree with both of those takes, and I stand by that Costa would beat him. Of my four, Costa is the one I'm least confident, just because he's like a mental case.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I still would pick him, but Vettori, Izzy, Whitaker. If Strickland ever beat one of those three guys, I would literally be shocked. But I'm very curious to find out if I'm right or wrong.
I'm going to throw a wrench. I'm going to throw a wrench in all this.
I was going to say we need your take. I was just going to say that.
I'm going to throw a wrench in all this. I'm going to say maybe the best matchup for him might be Whitaker, because Whitaker is probably the smallest guy in the upper echelon of middleweight.
Yes, that's correct.
Having used to be a welterweight.
Yeah.
And I think Strickland is like a sneaky big guy. He always seems like big.
I mean, he was a welterweight too.
Yeah, but
like he fought Kamaru.
But he seems so big in there. Like when
he does. I think Whitaker slips and rips him personally.
Oh, that's a great fight.
But yeah. What did you pick this fight? Did you pick Strickland?
Yes, I'm picking Strickland in this fight.
Yeah, I'm interested, man. I'm interested. I mean, he's gonna be right there. Like, what would it be? So Cannonier's fighting Brunson. Obviously, Whitaker's fighting Izzy.
It could be.
Did you hear
that Costa?
Did you hear that is it Costa or Costa? I don't know. I can never fucking remember how he says his
Costa.
name. Did you hear that Costa is apparently blowing up Dana's phone, saying the only fight he will take is a rematch with Vettori?
Yeah, I didn't add it to the MMA sphere because it's just fucking Costa being fucking Costa. But
what?
But yes.
Where do you think you have this leverage to demand fights when you fucking weighed in at 400 pounds?
My next fight is 185. Okay, just my next fight.
Personally, assuming they don't gift Costa some big fight, which I didn't think they would. If Strickland wins this fight, it might be Vettori. And I would be here for it.
Yeah, for sure.
I would be here for it.
Cool. All right, guys, let's wrap up this preview and end this episode with a little bit of trivia.
Ooh.
I've got 2 questions for you two fine gentlemen.
Let's do it.
All right,
Feeling extra smart tonight.
All right, here we go. Question number 1.
And tired, and I need to go to sleep.
I have to cook for my wife for the morning.
Oh, jeez.
Who did Royce Gracie beat in the finals of the tournament at UFC 1?
Motherfucker. Ken Shamrock?
I have multiple choice.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to get it when you give the multiple choice.
Yeah.
Was it A? I think I typoed this guy's name when I wrote it down. Is it Minko Ichihara? B.
Good enough. It's not him.
Gerald Gordeau. C. Ken Shamrock. Or D. Patrick Smith.
No, it's definitely Ken Shamrock. 100% Ken Shamrock.
Gordeau.
Is it Gordeau?
The answer is B. Gerald Gordeau.
So was Ken Shamrock the first fight that he fought then that night?
I believe
Shamrock
Ken
was not
Shamrock
on
was
UFC
not
1.
in the UFC 1.
Yeah.
So
think
what
he
the fuck
debuted
am
in
I
UFC
thinking
2.
of?
UFC 2.
UFC 2.
Oh.
I believe Ken Shamrock debuted for the UFC at UFC 2.
Yeah. I knew he didn't want to. I forget exactly why he didn't want to participate in UFC 1. They spoke to him, but it was something along the lines of like he didn't believe it was real. Like he because it was like in America and it was new and stuff, he was like, this must be some kind of like, he was in wrestling himself at the time, like that kind of scripted stuff, but he was like, this is like some scripted thing, or they're not going to be able to really do all these things they're saying they're going to be able to do. And he was like, it's not something I want to be involved in. And then he saw the first one and he was like, fuck, like that was real. Like,
Was
and
he
that's
doing,
why he,
was he doing pancreation stuff already?
yeah. Yep. I'll tell you what, quick side note. I'm not even like a huge Ken Shamrock guy. Nor am I a huge Jonathan Snowden guy, who the author of this book is. He kind of annoys me on Twitter sometimes. But Jonathan Snowden wrote a biography on Ken Shamrock. I might have it right here. Yeah, I do.
He's a sports writer?
He's like he's an MMA and also professional wrestling writer.
Oh, your Connor picture fell over.
Yeah, you just killed your
I'll get it.
there.
So it's just called Shamrock. Shamrock, the world's most dangerous man.
Yes.
It literally, I'm not exaggerating. It might be the best biography I've ever read in my life.
Yeah,
Whoa.
his life is
so
fucking
good.
crazy. The whole thing with Frank and the adoption and dude,
Who's adopted?
We are having a
Frank. So Ken and Frank Shamrock are brothers, right?
Yeah.
They're not brothers.
Ken. Well, that's what I'm telling Mike. That Frank is not his biological brother.
What?
Ken's father adopted Frank when they were younger, and
look
they have
alike.
a real beef.
Ken's father's not his father either.
Wait,
Oh.
do they
That
share
one
a
I
mother?
forgot.
Do they
But
wait?
yes,
do they
he's
share
right.
a mother?
Yeah, they're both adopted.
They're not related at all,
Not to their
No.
father, and not to the father either.
but they are related to the mother.
No,
No, they're both adopted from.
the same guy adopted both of them. He adopted.
Bro, I always thought they looked alike.
That's probably because they had the same fucking haircut. They are like
I
two
guess
completely different shades of color.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Frank Shamrock.
Frank
is,
Shamrock is
like
Hispanic.
permanently tan.
Frank
Yeah.
is Hispanic?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
What is Ken? Is he Italian or something?
Yeah, I believe. Yeah.
But they have real beef too. I don't actually know the full backstory. I know they've told it a few times now at this point. It's probably pretty in depth in that book, but they had a lot.
Yeah, I wish
of
I
beef.
remembered enough to tell it to you right now, but
Yeah.
I'm kind of remembering things, but I don't want to say the wrong thing. So
Frank has talked a lot of shit about it, specifically Frank, and
Yeah.
I think it's the younger brother kind of deal between.
they
the two.
both definitely had like kind of rough lives.
Yeah.
So they're both a little, But I'm telling you, that book, I was captivated by that book.
Wow.
Yeah.
Ken Shamrock also starting, I think he started his own promotion.
Yeah, he did at one point.
I don't know if it's still going. Okay.
I kind of think it is.
Second trivia question. Here we go. What year did the legendary Forrest Griffin versus Stephen Bonner? Stephen Bonner? Why am I
Stephen
suddenly
Bonner.
blanking on this? Stephen Bonner fight take place? Was it A, 2003, B, 2004, C, 2005, or D, 2006?
I want to say 2003 so bad. I'm gonna go with 3.
I'm going to go with 6.
Oh, man. Are you guys ready?
Do you not have the answer?
You can tell us the answer?
I do have the answer. I sure do. Sure do. Are you ready?
Yes.
The answer is C, 2005.
I knew it was 5 or 6. I guessed 6. Yeah, I knew it couldn't be earlier than that. Fuck. I was close.
That does it. That's all I have.
Damn, those are good ones,
2.
Mike.
Those were.
2 for 2.
Damn it.
You weren't 2 for 2.
I have 2 questions for the 2 of you.
Oh, I thought you were saying you stumped us 2 for 2. I was like, motherfucker, I got the first one.
I'll say you fucking stumped me 2 for 2.
Yeah.
Well, cool. We did it. Man, this was like one of my favorite episodes that we've done.
That was a good
good.
episode. Yeah, for sure.
Good time. Good
I
time.
enjoyed it. We went
All right,
longer than I
folks.
thought we were going to go.
Always.
All right.
Time flies when you're having fun. Folks, one last time, find us on social media at @new_MMA show in all the places. We got you on podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, all the places. I don't even know. Apple Podcasts. Leave us a review. And, of course, find us on YouTube and New MMA show. Drop us a comment like our boy Ooge from Turkey.
Ooh.
And we'll see you guys next week.
Friend of the show, Ooge.
Friend of the show. Friend of the pod. Any parting shots?
That's it.
Yeah, man, I'm good. Okay. Enjoy your week, guys. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and shout out to Ooge.
Yeah, man. All right, boys. See you next week.
All right. Peace.
Peace.